This is a 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid Limited. Hyundai's large sedan, which just received a mid-cycle update to its 8th generation, which first arrived for the 2020 model year. There are 4 trims for the Sonata in total, 2 for the internal combustion engine and 2 for the hybrid. The 2 internal combustion engine trims are SEL and N-Line, and the 2 hybrid trims are SEL and Limited. So yes, that makes this the top hybrid trim you can get. Hyundai didn't go as far as Toyota here, which has a hybrid-only lineup for the Camry starting in 2025, but it's pretty darn similar to Honda, which has a pretty even split between hybrid and non-hybrid. So how does Hyundai's just updated large sedan stack up? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars, and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for a Hyundai Sonata SEL Hybrid is $31,950. Jumping into the Sonata Hybrid Limited raises that price considerably, costing $38,350. And my test car did include carpeted floor mats and cost $38,560. With that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. Oftentimes when you see a mid-cycle update, the changes are pretty subtle. Not here. The Sonata has a drastically different looking front end with this really nice, sharp and clean horizontal light bar that runs clean across the front of the car. The headlights have been pushed much lower. They're now down here. The grille is a very different shape, also wider than before. I think this is a big improvement over the last front end. Not that the last one was bad, but this one looks sharp and clean and sleek, in my opinion. It's a nice big change. And while the hood itself does not look drastically different, I still want to show you what's underneath it. Well, there it is, your 2-liter hybrid engine with a total system output of 192 horsepower. You do get this really interesting long and flat looking air intake right here. Comes off over to the side. Here's your air box, travels around, but the throttle body's all the way down there. So the air has a really interesting path, and it looks like it has a couple of spots to quiet the air down as you go. The shroud right here does say HEV, hybrid vehicle, and it is Smart Stream technology. And yes, windshield washer fluid is easy to get to here on the passenger side, right up front. Easy. Looking at the car in profile, it definitely carries that 4-door coupe kind of shape. You have this pretty steeply raked windshield up to the sloping roof line that just carries down, down, and down, and basically never stops till you get to the very rear of the car. Steeply raked rear windshield as well, and even the trunk has a slope to it until you get to this little baked-in integrator spoiler right here. There is a lot going on when you look at this car in profile, but I think it's nicely executed. All in all, it's a nice looking car. And it's a nice looking car that is in the Portofino gray color, which is one of the standard colors for the Sonata. And I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen right now so you can check those out and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. For the Sonata Hybrid, the only wheel size you can get are 17-inch wheels right here. But if you go with the internal combustion Sonata, you can get up to 19s on the N-Line. And yes, this is a square setup. The wheels and tires in back are the same size as what's in front. While not as drastic a change as the front end, the tail lights are certainly quite a bit different. You have this H that runs right across the entire width, built into the tail lamps here. Also, you have these nice little interesting subtle shark fin louvers on either side here and here. And yeah, I think that looks pretty interesting. And finally, I appreciate the fact that there's no fancy faux exhaust or anything. You just have one tailpipe under here, nice and clean, just as it should be. Standard on the Limited Sonata is what they call a full power trunk, and there is a button right here. And there you go. Full power trunk, lovely. And of course, you can close it as well. On the other Sonata trims, it is a hands-free trunk. The sun is nice and bright, so I'm actually going to switch to a different camera to show you that you have 16 cubic feet of space in the trunk, a nice low loading floor, and a nice wide space. And if you lift right here, easy access to a bit more storage and no spare tire, but a tire mobility kit instead. And if you need additional room and don't have to carry any passengers in the second row, that is easy to do. Pull a couple levers and you have a lot more than 16 cubic feet of storage and room for you and a passenger. All right, let's check out those back seats. The interior of this Sonata is tan, and I appreciate that. Really, it's two-tone. There's plenty of black in there, but I appreciate that it's not all black. I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and I would say I have about 4 inches of knee room, which is pretty good. The seat bottoms are decently high, so I have pretty good thigh support as well. I do have headroom, not much, maybe about a half an inch to an inch of headroom, but that's despite the fact that we do have a panoramic sunroof in here. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that. And I also have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. I also have 2 USB Type-C ports, a manual sunshade, and of course, an armrest with cup holders. So yeah, man, life is good back here. In the 2024 Hyundai Sonata, you can get what they call a digital key 2, which means that without the key, with your smartphone, you could unlock, lock, and start the car. And that now applies for Android and Apple devices. So that's nice to know. And because this is a limited trim, we do have a 12-speaker Bose sound system. And right next to that, you can see that we also have 2-position seat memory right there. That's just above the usual controls you get on the door there. Plenty of adjustments for the seats, including lumbar adjustment right there. There are several buttons to the left of the steering wheel, including your electric park brake right there. Aside from the adjustments, the seat material on the Sonata Limited is leather, and you do also get decent upper and lower bolsters to hold you in place. It is a nice warm day, so I'm going to start the car right away. This steering wheel is wrapped in a nice leather and has its fair share of controls. Media stuff on the right, cruise control options on the left. You do also get paddle shifters, upshift on the right, downshift on the left, except that in eco driving mode, these are the brake regen adjustments, and in sport driving mode, these are paddle shifters for the 6-speed transmission. In the Sonata, you get a 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster, and right next to it, a second 12.3-inch center display. The two combined are called the panoramic curved display. Also, because this is a limited Sonata, we have a 12-inch color head-up display right there. You do get lots of options on the center display, and it is easy to use, quick to react to your inputs. It all works very nice. It also includes wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Beneath that, you have another screen that shows you your dual zone climate control, and because this is a limited Sonata, you have heated and ventilated seats. The heated seats are standard on the Sonata Hybrid, but the Limited is the only one that gets the ventilated seats. You do also get a 2-level heated steering wheel. That's also standard on the Sonata. Beneath that, you do get a couple of USB Type-C ports, as well as a cigarette style port right there. And this is a wireless smartphone charger. This is optionally available on the SEL Hybrid, standard on the Limited. Beneath that, you get a few more buttons right here, including your drive modes, which we'll talk about in just a second. A nice tray for a smartphone right there. A couple of deep cup holders and more storage down here. Looking up, we have a couple of controls for lights and a power privacy panel for your panoramic sunroof. It's lovely. Where's the brindle, you might ask? It sticks out of the steering wheel column right here. You twist forward to put it in drive. You twist backwards to put it in reverse. Light touch puts it in neutral. And right here, there's a push button to get it back in park. All right, let's talk drive modes. You only get a few drive modes here: Eco, Sport, and My Drive. And to adjust My Drive, you come to the center display here, Setup, Vehicle, Drive Mode, My Drive. And see here, you can adjust the powertrain and the steering feel. For my drive, I'm going to put the powertrain in Smart and the steering in Sport. That helps make the steering feel precise to me. But the only way to find out for sure is to get back on the drive, so let's do that now. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. Briefly, if you go with the internal combustion engine Sonata, you have two different engines to choose from. Both of them are 2.5 liters. One of them is naturally aspirated, the other one is turbocharged. And it's an interesting split. The SEL gets the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter engine. It makes 191 horsepower. It's attached to an 8-speed automatic transmission and comes with front wheel drive, but you can option it with all-wheel drive for $1,500. So yes, there is now an all-wheel drive Sonata option. The N-Line gets the turbocharged 2.5 liter engine. It makes 290 horsepower, quite a lot more, and it comes with an 8-speed dual clutch transmission, which is really nice for fast shifts and slightly sportier driving. However, that one is front wheel drive only. Ironic. Going with the Sonata Hybrid, both trims come with a 2-liter hybrid engine, the one you saw under the hood. So, where does that 192 horsepower come from? Well, most of it does come from the 2-liter engine. It is an over-square engine, meaning it has a bigger bore than stroke, and it has a 14:1 compression ratio. Generally speaking, going with an over-square engine is better for revving, but worse for generating torque, and indeed we see that here. You get a peak 150 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, but only 139 pound-feet of torque, and you have to wait all the way to 5,000 RPM to achieve it. Ultimately, that doesn't really matter though, because you do have the electric motor to help out, and it on its own makes 51 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. Now, I mentioned that it gets 192 system horsepower, the electric motor and engine working together. I didn't mention torque. Hyundai does not provide that figure, but I have a feeling it's not much more than the 151 pound-feet that the electric motor makes. The electric motor makes that basically from 0 RPM all the way to 1,800 RPM. The engine doesn't make its peak torque until it reaches 5,000 RPM. I don't know how the two intermesh with gearing, but I have a feeling the electric motor is starting to peter out by the time the internal combustion engine is building revs and making torque. Attached to the hybrid engine is a 6-speed automatic transmission, a little bit on the low side these days, and the power then does go to the front wheels. Coming along for the ride is a larger than average 1.6 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack that's pretty big for a non-plug-in setup, and you do get a lot of EV only driving as you just putz around. In fact, as I speak to you right now, the engine isn't running. And I have to say, this is a really nice, really refined, smooth and quiet powertrain. I was genuinely impressed with how little NVH the engine itself produced and how smoothly everything operated and how well the electric motor and the internal combustion engine integrate with each other. Also, I mentioned to you earlier that we have the paddle shifters and they actually serve a dual purpose. When we're in the eco driving mode, the paddle shifters function as brake regen levels, how much decel you get just by lifting off the throttle. And you choose between 4 different levels, coasting and then levels 1, 2, and 3. Right now I'm in coasting, lifting off, no problem. So I hit the negative paddle once, lifting, that's level 1. It feels like, I don't know, aggressive coasting. Go to level 2, lifting off, that starts to feel like real deceleration, maybe almost 1/10 of a G. Okay, go to the 3rd level, lift off throttle, and that's maybe a tenth and a half a G of decel. Certainly not one pedal driving levels of decel, but decent. So if you like to play around with that kind of stuff, it's nice to have. However, there's a pretty big caveat here. Unlike a lot of modern powertrains, this one is not very smooth about the transition between accelerating and decelerating. It's more like an on-off switch, even if you're careful with your throttle pedal foot. So that's a demerit for me. That's one thing I really liked about brake regen, is that you could have this nice analog feeling with just your right foot to control both speeding up and slowing down. You don't get that here. So actually, for this car in particular, I prefer to have it off coast and just let the computer sort out whether it's the brake regen or the foundation brakes doing the work. Of course, you can also shift it to the sport driving mode, and then the paddle shifters do affect the transmission now. So now I hit the paddle on the left, and we're downshifting. There's second gear. Now, it will upshift on its own if you let it run to the red line, but it will run to the red line before it does it. Here, I'll do it one more time, second gear. Yeah, auto upshifts, but really, considering that this is a hybrid, it's actually pretty decent pull. I was pleasantly surprised by how much acceleration we got out of this thing, considering 192 horsepower in the modern era is kind of on the low side. What that tells me is that it is 192 horsepower for a nice broad band, and you can really feel it pretty much whatever speed you're going, you get decent pull. And it's smooth about it too. So overall, this is a great powertrain. I'm quite happy with it. And of course, that means you get good fuel economy as well. You get 44 miles to the gallon in the city, 51 miles to the gallon on the highway, 47 combined. As important as fuel economy is, it's still not as much fun as accelerating. Of course, I had to test that. Let me show you right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test in this 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. I do have it in the sport driving mode, and I do also have traction control off, though I'm not expecting much on any wheel slip, though it is front wheel drive, so maybe a little. All right, let's see how it goes. All right, coming to a complete stop. Hard on the throttle. Okay, soft launch, so no wheel slip at all, but actually pretty good pep here. Especially considering this is a 6-speed transmission, this is definitely more pull than I expected. Yeah, that is acceleration that belies its horsepower and torque figures. That is quicker than I expected. Really, pretty solid. Now the shifts were a bit on the slow side, and it was a little bit of a wider ratio spread because of a 6-speed, but yeah, all in all, pretty solid acceleration from this Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. Yeah, honestly, pleasantly surprised. Now, I do want to tell you briefly, I did try brake torquing to see if that helped at all, but because this is a hybrid, whenever you put your foot on the brake, the engine shuts off. So when you lift your foot off the brake, you have to wait for the engine to kick on first, and then it's a pretty soft launch anyway. Zero gains. All right, let's dig into the chassis. We do have a 4-wheel independent suspension, struts up front, multi-link setup in back, and it does provide a pretty decent compromise between ride and handling. This definitely leans on the ride side. You do get a fair amount of roll if you're quick into the corners, fair amount of pitch and dive when you're accelerating and decelerating, but nothing excessive. Nothing about it is floaty or anything like that. It's perfectly composed. It's just not, I don't know, exciting. And it is quite nice in here. Quiet, well isolated, really strong feeling body, and all of that is intentional. For 2024, all Sonatas, regardless of trim, have acoustic windshields and acoustic front door glass, driver and passenger side. That helps isolate the cabin from wind noise a bit. Also, Hyundai said that they added body reinforcements and, this is a weird one, changed materials in the steering wheel to help reduce NVH. I don't know exactly what steering wheel material would do to affect noise, vibration, and harshness, but I do know that this car does feel really refined. Whatever they did, I do think it helped. And everything I said is true on roads like this and on the interstate. I did test it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate, see how this Sonata Hybrid feels on the open road. But first, I want to quickly show you the different controls for cruise control. Cruise control on off is right here. You speed adjust right here, and you push this to restart the cruise control. Right here is your distance setting right here. This is not cruise control related, but this is what turns on highway driving assist, which gives you lane keeping assist, keeps you centered in the lane, all those kinds of things. So that's an important one to test, which we'll do right now. All right, getting onto the interstate now. We do have a lot of driving aids in this Sonata Hybrid. I'll go ahead and put them on the screen right now for you to check out. The one that I just talked about, highway driving assist, is the one that kind of puts lane keeping assist and smart cruise control and all that stuff together, and we're gonna test that. Okay, cruise control is set at 78 miles an hour to go with traffic, though we're going a little bit slower than that right now because of traffic. And now I'm gonna hit that additional button and turn on highway driving assist. So highway driving assist is now on, and taking my hands off the wheel because we're going through a subtle curve. And sure enough, yeah, lane keeping assist is working pretty darn well. It's not perfectly centered, but it is pretty close. You can see the steering wheel wiggling around just a little bit to keep it true. So yeah, reasonably good, I'd have to say. The seat is pretty comfortable, though it's not perfect, so I'm going to adjust the lumbar. Yeah, that's better. Just needed a little lumbar support to improve that. And generally, I'm pretty darn happy with cabin isolation. We can hear a bit of wind noise, but it is the more lower frequency, lower tone buffeting kind of stuff, so that's really not bad. And road noise is actually really good. I'm impressed at how little road noise we're getting. It's actually a pretty quiet and refined feeling cabin. The structure itself feels plenty solid. There's no quivers or anything weird in the structure, so I'm quite happy there. Also, the ride is very pleasant as well. It is soaking up the unevenness of the interstate and expansion joints really well. So yeah, this is a very, very pleasant riding car. And driving range with a full tank, being a hybrid, showing well over 500 miles. So this is actually a really nice highway cruiser, I would say. Oh, and one other thing, if you have to change lanes or do whatever, it does have built-in blind spots, and it is built into the instrument cluster. So let me show you. Cruising along, need to turn left, need to turn right. Pretty nice. All in all, this is a great highway cruiser. Yeah, still not the quietest thing in the world, but pretty darn good. Okay, what do I think of this updated 8th generation Hyundai Sonata Hybrid? I have to say, I like it. I like it more than I expected to like it. I think that the decisions that the designers made really did liven up and sharpen up this interior. I think it's a nice looking front end, and the rear end to me isn't as big of a difference, but the changes were in the right direction. We still maintain that 4-door coupe body shape, which I'm kind of neutral about, but I think Hyundai executed well here. Overall, I think this is better looking than the 11th generation Honda Accord, and I really like the way that one looked. The Accord definitely still has the Sonata beat when it comes to power, especially in the torque department. The Accord gets 247 pound-feet. That is a healthy jump over what we get here, but this isn't wanting for power as much as I thought it would be, considering the lower peak horsepower numbers. And then the refinement level, the NVH, the quietness, the smoothness of everything, it's as good as it gets in the mainstream sedan market, in my opinion. I like the styling of the interior as well. I generally find it comfortable. I like all the options I get: heated seats, ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and the second row gets manual sunshades as well. And I think that combination has the potential to allure a lot of folks. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching.